The Inter-Party Advisory Council has opposed the Senate's proposed bill to establish the Local Government Independent Electoral Commission. Sponsored by Senator Sani Musa, the bill has been deemed by IPAC as unnecessary and likely to cause a duplication of functions and a waste of public funds. In a statement signed by National Publicity Secretary Chinyere Ogekalu, IPAC emphasized that the creation of another commission will not resolve the issues in conducting local government elections. It said it will result in redundant efforts and resource allocation. The proposed commission will still depend on INEC's voter register, IREV, BVAS, ballot boxes, and other resources. IPAC suggested that the focus should be on enhancing INEC's capacity to conduct free, fair, and transparent elections at the local level, especially during a time when government resources are strained. To discuss this, we are joined by Vahyala Kwaga. He's a senior researcher and policy analyst, BudgIT Foundation. Thank you for joining us, Vahyala.
Good evening. Thank you so much for having me.
Now, can you elaborate on IPAC's specific concerns regarding the duplication of functions and potential waste of public funds, with the proposed Local Government Independent Electoral Commission?
So, it's very worrying that the federal government through the National Assembly has seen now as an opportune time to extend their reach. And I think IPAC speaks for a large number of Nigerians in expressing its concern and worry that the federal government is doing this now when it is also at the same time trying to implement the Oronsoye report. And that is another kettle of fish. But the IPAC's grouse is that the constitution of this commission is a duplication of efforts. And when you think about it, when you read the news stories that have come out, speaking about the proposed functions of that commission, you do see basically a reproduction of the functions of INEC, from recruiting officers to enlightening Nigerians to monitoring and supervision of the process. And the guidelines, or the proposed guidelines as they are, will still clash with the functions of INEC, because there is a role of INEC that gives it supervisory authority over all elections, in the country, and that's a constitutional provision. So yes, this law is going to create a new commission, but it cannot do that without amending the Constitution. And amending the Constitution requires a very lengthy process.
All right. Now, in addition to the functions clashing with INEC, now, according to IPAC, the proposed commission would still rely on INEC's resources. Now, could you, by any chance, explain how this duplication might occur and also the specific inefficiencies that it might create?
So we're looking at this new commission basically using the resources, the database of INEC. And it's interesting because one thing that really occurred to me or that struck me is, what would happen to persons who have not voted and want to register? Would they have to register as, voters under the local government and then still register as voters for gubernatorial and presidential? That would create some form of logistical challenge for INEC, it would create a logistical challenge for intending voters or intending registrants, because would they have to vote or register to vote in two different places? And speaking of the inefficiencies, if the new commission is going to use the resources of INEC as we know it, why not just expand the capacity of the existing INEC as opposed to creating a totally new commission? Because this would mean the acquisition of offices. This would mean the creation of a commission with budget lines for recurrent, for overhead, for capital expenditure, and everything that entails. For the conduct of the 2023 election, INEC claims they spent over 300 billion naira. And we are talking about elections in 768 local governments, the rest are area councils. What would that entail in terms of budgeting for a government that has already gone beyond 30 trillion, with the recent supplementary 2024 budget? the budget as we know it, the budget size, adding this 6 trillion to the existing 28, is getting to around 34 trillion. And it is mind-boggling that the government still wants to, acquire things that would make it spend more. It's really, really baffling, and it's a serious cause for concern, but it's good that IPAC has spoken up.
All right, Vahyala, you did, give us a few tips on how INEC could actually strengthen their capacity in order to be able to conduct local government elections, free and fair. But then, 34 trillion naira is quite a lot. Now, can you tell us what might be the potential financial implications of creating a separate local government independent electoral commission compared to strengthening INEC's capabilities?
I mean, any average Nigerian's guess is as good as mine. This would mean the creation of a completely new set of line items for this commission. We're talking about directors, we're talking about, junior level staff, mid-level staff, we're talking about the commissioner himself, we're talking about his assistants, technical assistants, we're talking about, support staff, and this is just the personnel. This is not the recurrent. So the offices, the cars, and other computers, etc., travels, logistics, and not talk of, key capital spendings that the commission would require. And it's actually frightening when you think about it, because this is the same government that is literally going around borrowing and borrowing. I mean, the NNPC is even borrowing. And it stands to reason why the federal government would think of doing this now. I suppose it's thinking about the fact that people are worried that governors have had undue control over the state gubernatorial process. And, you could argue that state governors would truncate this process if it was left in their hands. But the reverse seems to be an overreach by an existing party interest in government. I'd like to remind Nigerians that there have been complaints as recent as 2023 that some of the resident electoral commissioners are actually card-carrying members of the APC. This did not just happen under Tinubu, it also happened under Buhari. Out of the 19 recs, I think 5 were identified as being politically exposed persons, in quotes. And it's worrying because there's a high likelihood, looking at the proposed bill itself, the nomination of the chairman of the commission will be done by the president. And there would be, some confirmation by the National Assembly. And this is a problem because there's a likelihood that it would just be filled with card-carrying members of the existing party. And I'd also like to remind Nigerians that Professor Jega, in a lecture he made, I think last year, said that power of the president to appoint should actually be reviewed because it gives too much power to the president. And we have seen that this power can be abused.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Vahyala, for taking time out to speak to us on this.
Thank you so much for having me.